When I think back on all the fears when I was pregnant, all of them dismissed except for one. The only test the state mandated was genetic. Looking for that extra chromosome.
Hello, and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Steven Saux.
I'm Lori Saux.
And I'm Sophia Saux.
Today is a very special episode because with us we have our daughter Sophia Saux as a guest on our podcast. Welcome, Sophia.
Hi.
Thank you for agreeing to come on to our podcast. And it might be a little intimidating sitting across the table from your parents, having to be completely honest, and we'd like you to be completely honest because there's no wrong answers, and you're just here to shed a little light, a little glimpse into what your life is like and how you have been impacted by having a sibling with Down syndrome. Does that sound good?
That sounds awesome.
Okay, Sophia. So for the listeners out there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Sophia Saux. I am in 7th grade, and I like doing improv and acting, and I have a younger brother who's 10 years old with Down syndrome.
How old are you?
I am 12.
Well, tell us a little bit about your brother.
He is super funny. He loves acting out movies, and he's really fun to be around, and he really inspires me a lot.
How does he inspire you?
He inspires me because there's kids out there that have doubts of him, and he just doesn't really pay attention, and he just he knows what he can do, and he kind of just does it. And I would want to be that kind of person that is just like, well, I know my limits and I know what I can do, so I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Do you think he's aware of their doubts?
I'm sure he's seen looks that like, oh, well, maybe those people don't believe in me, but I don't think he really pays attention to that. I think he just knows that people love him, and he pays attention to the good in life, which I think is awesome.
Are you aware that other people are doubting his abilities?
I have become very protective of him because I don't really want him to know that people are doubting his abilities, because I don't want that to affect him too much. I just realize that people look at him and some people are like, well, you know, he can only do this much, and they have this limit set on him, and I just naturally notice it. I don't think I wake up, I'm like, I'm going to notice everything that anyone says about my brother. It's just something that happens naturally.
Where do you notice it the most? Or when do you notice it the most?
Now I'm kind of used to it, but when I was younger, I didn't really understand why people were being so, he can't do this and he can't do that, because I live with him and I know the things that he can't do, like he can't do a backflip, but
I can't do a backflip, Sophia.
Yeah. But
you're getting close, but
I know that if he has his mind set on something, that he will do it. And I didn't really understand why people just don't even know him and just are like, well, you know, he has Down syndrome, so he can't do that. You know, it's
when you say people, what people are you talking about?
Adults were like, oh, your brother has Down syndrome, and they kind of did it with this tone, like this very baby tone, like very caring. And I didn't understand why people they feel so worried about it. They were like, oh my gosh, they were like, there's something wrong. And I didn't really understand that, why people were like, or anyone. I really noticed it when I was at school and they saw my brother, and then during class they'd be like, oh, your brother has Down syndrome. And it was kind of weird because they didn't really know his name. They just knew that he had Down syndrome. And it took a while for me to get used to that. People are just going to say that, and I can't get mad at them. And it's something that's going to happen. So
they identified him not by his name, but this one quality.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
at first I was like, well, yeah. And I tried to explain that, oh, there's so much more to the side of him. I mean, or he's the kid that runs around at the playground and just is nice to everyone. Or he's the kid that loves watching football by the field. He wasn't identified by that. He wasn't identified by any of his good qualities. He was just identified by this one quality that everyone thought was so like bad or sad, or they were like, oh my gosh, is your brother okay? Like they kind of did it in that kind of tone, and I didn't really understand. I'm like, he's fine, you know.
So you feel like it came from a place of caring, but
Yeah, it wasn't like they weren't mean against him, but it was, I kind of had to get used to that people are going to come from that tone, and I can't really change that. And maybe I can educate people on there's so much more to him than just having Down syndrome. But people just want to kind of relate, you know, they kind of want to have that thing where they can talk to someone about. And I kind of just had to accept that.
So when they approached you, so I'm guessing this was students and teachers alike?
This was students,
Yeah.
mostly, because I feel like teachers kind of know more, so they didn't really come from that tone. But adults, if I was like playing with him and they're like, oh, you're such a good sister, and I was like, I am, but I feel like they're saying that I'm a good sister because my brother has Down syndrome. And it's not, you know, maybe I helped him up the stairs, but like anyone should help someone up the stairs that's having a problem. But I knew that I was a good sister, but it was kind of like,
How did Liam feel about that?
Liam, well, I have some different points.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I really want to hear what you had to say.
I was saying that even though I knew I was a good sister, I felt that the adults were saying it in a more compassionate way. And it was almost like they felt sorry for me. The adults felt sorry for me that I had a brother with Down syndrome, like it was a burden on me. And I didn't really get why they would think that it was a burden, since I love Liam and he's so awesome, and I didn't understand why it would be a burden. And I don't really think Liam like paid attention to that. Like he just knew that I loved him and that you loved him, and I don't think he really paid attention to any of the people outside of the people that didn't like him or had judgments against him. And especially today, a lot of kids or a lot of adults are like, oh my gosh, someone said that they didn't really even know well. Someone said on Instagram or said on, you know, just texted me, oh, I don't like you. And Liam doesn't really pay attention. Even if someone comes up to him and is so mean, he's like, okay, and he takes that in, but then he
maybe doesn't give it value.
No, he doesn't really give it any attention, and that's something that I wish people did now and didn't take it so harshly. If someone that they don't even know very well just doesn't like them. And
That's a good point. You experienced bullying to a different degree, and maybe you would have liked to have had that ability to let it go so it didn't take its toll on you.
I did experience bullying, and I feel like if I had more experience with Liam when I was that age, and I saw how he didn't pay attention to the people who were mean, I could have kind of taken that and it was like, okay, he doesn't get affected by it, I shouldn't. And you guys told me, oh, just, it's fine, don't pay attention to them. But it was hard because I couldn't relate to anyone that just took it like nothing, like took it in and then didn't really moved on from that pretty soon after. And everyone, you know, it was kind of.
Are you talking about the bullying that you received?
Yes.
Or yeah.
The bullying that I received, I wish that I had that kind of experience of seeing Liam just not taking any of that bullying and not like being sad about it for a long period of time.
Right. And when you say that kids or adults would identify Liam not by his name but by Down syndrome, they gave his value in the fact that he had Down syndrome is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
That you observed.
Yes,
that
that's
was
what I
his
observed.
value. How does that affect you as far as knowing Liam as a whole person, or what your perception of Down? Because I remember when you were little, one time you asked me if you had Down syndrome, and having the experience, where kids identify or adults talk in a tone about it. What did that make you feel about? Did that impact how you felt about what Down syndrome was?
It did impact me when I was younger of what Down syndrome was, because I felt like Down syndrome was, I didn't know what scientifically was behind it, but I knew that if you had Down syndrome, then people would be mean to you and people would have lower expectations of you. Expectations of you.
Sophia, that is a beautiful segue to the fact that you had your own challenges where you had speech therapy.
Yes.
Because you had your teeth pulled when you were little. So in some ways you could relate. I think you could see both sides of, you had challenges speaking and experience speech therapy, which Liam also has, but you probably had a very different experience, which probably feeds into what you're talking about right now with expectations. You had a different experience as far as having a challenge and how you were treated compared to how maybe your brother has been treated.
Yes, like I took speech therapy at school, but no one really lowered their expectations of me because of that. That was a challenge that I had, but they didn't base everything that I was about she has a speech difficulty. But Liam, everything is based around he has Down syndrome, and I didn't think that was very fair.
Mm-hmm.
How you said that I thought that I had Down syndrome was when I had trouble talking, people made fun of me, and I thought because people made fun of me, I had Down syndrome because, well, if you have Down syndrome, you're made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kids can be mean, huh?
yeah, kids can be mean.
I'm so sorry.
And
And that what grade was that? That was like first kindergarten through like third grade. I'm sorry.
But then my teeth started growing in, and it helped with my speech.
And that changed. That changed everything.
That changed. They're like, "Oh, that's what you were saying the whole time." Okay. But I can also relate that experience to when even you or someone doesn't understand Liam. I understand what it's like to not be understood. I understand where I'm trying to say something and it's not, I'm trying and people are trying their best, but it's not coming out. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if he's trying to say something and people don't understand him, I'm like, wait, this is what he's saying. And I feel I can understand him more because I understand.
Because you've been there, having difficulty speaking.
I've been there, and I've heard myself in videos, and I can kind of make out what I'm saying, and I could understand what I was saying. So, and I feel like that helps me knowing and understanding that certain challenge.
How did you feel when no one could understand what you were saying?
I felt frustrated because I couldn't really hear that I had a speech difficulty. I thought that I was just talking, and I was like, well, why are these people ignoring me? Why are they just, and I was like, I didn't understand it, especially being young. I couldn't be like, okay, wait, I don't have front teeth. That makes a difference. But and then when people started laughing at me, I was like, that's just how I talk. That's me. And I feel like for having that difficulty, I was like, well, maybe I should be more self-aware. Maybe I should not talk as much. But that I kind of put those thoughts away because I was like, well, I'm not going to take what people say about me and, lower my self-esteem. But it was hard, especially in kinder through third. That was hard. And I feel like no kindergartner or third grader shouldn't have to go through those challenges.
And it's such a really beautiful insight that you can give on what Liam is experiencing that I never really explored with you before, but you can understand what Liam feels like to not be understood and how that impacts his want to speak or express himself. I should take you into the IEPs.
Then you don't understand.
Because that's an insight that, we could speculate as much as we want, but you have experience to say, hey, when I couldn't speak and people couldn't understand me, there was a frustration to the point that you maybe didn't want to speak, or maybe it affected your self-esteem, or you didn't even understand why people were ignoring you, but you felt like you were being ignored.
Or even what's the reason for speaking out, or
Yeah.
what's the reason for responding to somebody?
I felt like if these people are being so mean to me, why, what's the point of talking back to them if they're just going to ignore me? So I feel like that helped me not trying to explain, well, that hurts my feelings, and just knowing that hurts my feelings and just moving on from that. Because, and I feel knowing that and knowing how that feels, if Liam gets bullied, I go on full of this mode of, no, you can't do that, because I know what it feels like to be bullied and not have that voice of saying, stop it. And he tries and he's like, no, don't do that. But people can't hear him, or they think, oh, he's small and he can say whatever he wants and I can still do whatever I want because I'm bigger or I'm older or I can talk more. And I don't, so me being able to talk more and being bigger than them, I go over and I'm like, don't do that. That's so unfair. And they don't understand how that feels. And I understand how that feels. And I'm just saying, you can't do that.
You can't make fun of him.
You can't make fun of him.
One thing that you saw that Liam has that you wish you had was when you were being bullied, that it didn't affect you long term, because it did affect you.
It did.
The thing that you wish that what you can relate to him is that when you were being bullied about the way you spoke, there was a part of you that said, they can't understand what I'm saying, so I'm not going to waste my breath sticking up for myself. It didn't make it hurt less, but you made that decision that I'm just not going to say anything. Having had that experience when you were still at school with Liam, when you guys were still in the same school, that made you a little advocate at a very young age. And so I don't know what happened during the school days, but I know a few times on the playground after school, I witnessed you advocating very strongly.
Very strongly. And you pulled me,
We can't teach through anger, though I understand your emotions.
I got very passionate about, you can't do that. And you pulled me to the side and you're like, you have to just calm down, and you can go over there and be like, hey, that's wrong to bully him, but you don't, since yelling doesn't solve anything. And there's this one boy I remember that blocked him on the slide, and he wanted to go down, and he wouldn't let him on the slide, and he was like, no, move. And Liam was telling the boy to move, but it was very hard to understand him. So I went over and I yelled at him.
Because you weren't right next to Liam at the time, right?
I wasn't. I think I was.
The boy thought Liam was alone.
Yes, and
that makes it easier to bully.
And I was looking for Liam, and I saw him, and I heard the boys yelling, and I came up to him and I said, guys, this is a slide for, but yelling. This is a slide for.
You were so calm.
No. I was very mad, and I was like, this is a slide for everyone. You are not the boss. Move, get off the slide right now, and let him down. And they looked at me with a terrified look, and they're like, okay. And they moved. And when I saw that boy again at a book fair, I got so mad because I remember having kids bullied me and not really knowing how to tell anyone, and then having them come up again and just be around me. And and I remember you saying, "Oh, there's a girl from your class and they bullied me," and I didn't really know how to express that they bullied me. So when I saw the kid there, and he kind of looked at me with this look like, "Hi, I'm here, and you can't really do anything," and I did something wrong, and I know that I did something wrong, I got mad because I was like, "You're just so in this high esteem where you think you can bully someone that's challenged and has this challenge where he can't express how he feels clearly, and you take that to your advantage and you just bully him harder." And I remember how that felt, and I got really mad about it, and I yelled at the kid. And after, I was like, well, I just yelled at like this third grader.
I think what I'm hearing you say is the frustration, or you're identifying that bullies pick on someone that they think can't defend themselves.
Is smaller than them.
Right. And how frustrating it was, because you've experienced the entire thing of, and I have to tell you, even as an adult, sometimes someone's treats you in a certain way and then you see them in a different surrounding, and it's really hard to look someone in the face that is mean. It's hard for an adult to get through everything that encompasses, much less a child who's protecting their sibling. I remember this because I remember the parents staring at you because you were staring at the classmate of Liam's and saying something to you, and you told me. And the father even did this. It's so funny because the father did the same thing, where he kind of tried to brush it off. And I looked at the father and said, "No, my daughter is saying your son bullied Liam, and she doesn't really like that very much." And I remember the dad didn't know what to do with that, because I think he was aware that his son had bullied Liam.
I remember that the dad, when I was looking at the kid, turned to me and looking at you, and I said, "I'm sorry, is there something wrong?"
Yeah, he said that to you.
And
which he shouldn't be talking to you.
And that's when I thought there is something wrong and I have to say something about it, or else he's going to continue with this behavior. And I remember after I yelled at him, I kind of looked back and I said, I could have handled that differently. But at the same time, I said he deserved it because I didn't hurt him. I just called him on what he did wrong. And even if he gets mad about it, he still understands that he thought that he could get away with it and it didn't. And having you support me, I felt like when I had a speech difficulty, I didn't really have anyone that could understand me, that I could talk to and have someone else support me. So standing up for my brother and then having someone else support me in defending him made me feel good, made me feel that I'm taking something that Liam may have forgotten about already and just saying, you can't do that and don't do that again.
So you were like sticking up for yourself as well.
I was sticking up to, this is all the things that I couldn't do and didn't happen to me, and now I'm calling someone that did the same thing and has the same behavior like that the kids had towards me, and just calling them on it, and it felt really good. It felt good that I could do that.
So your experience with bullies has really helped you to advocate for your brother.
It has. I feel like if I didn't have the experience, I wouldn't really stand up to them as harshly.
Yeah, you get really mad, or you used to get really mad.
As I do now. I mean, I haven't gotten mad for the past couple of months since we've been in quarantine, but
Score one for quarantine.
Yeah. But I feel like if I didn't have the experience, even as hard as it was, it came out for the better. And I view that now, and I'm kind of thankful for those bullies because they did something that was a low blow and just kind of made me feel bad, and it turned out for the good. And that's what I like, is that someone's bad act can make a difference of good in someone else's life. And I really like that that's what happened in my case. So.
You know, that's you. You took something bad and made it good. They
Yeah.
didn't do that at all. You took what they gave you and you chose to make it something positive in your life. And that's a gift, Sophia.
Yeah.
I don't want you to give them any credit for that, because nobody should bully anybody.
No.
And the meanness is something that I've never understood in this life. It's unnecessary. So nobody's allowed to do that. And anything that came from it that was good was your doing. And I really wanted to focus on the fact that you've chosen to take that insight that you have, and it gives you a really great insight into advocating for Liam, because I think you can even advocate, like, I can come from a place of what's right or wrong. You know, you understand, you know how he could be feeling. You know that it's more than just he needs to express himself so people can understand. You can touch base with the frustrations that he's feeling, or the fact that it might stop him from talking, or, you know, anything else that you experienced. And that makes you a great advocate, because you have a great empathy for him that comes from a real place of experience. The anger, I think we worked through that. And you have to know that you can, that anger that you feel is your feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you choose how to act on it, just like you chose how to act on, you know, how you were treated, how you chose to change that. And whether you yell at somebody or whatever you do. The only reason I say making the anger to where you yell is that the yelling has more of effect on you, a negative effect. But that anger is real and true. And I'm going to say it, sometimes you need to yell. You don't ever want to hurt somebody, and you don't want to use words that are hurtful. But, you know, if it makes you mad and you have to express it, you find a way to express it, whatever is best for you. And then you can let it go. That is what you were talking about, having that ability to let something go so it doesn't take its toll on you, right? And, you know, you're a kid, and you learn from it, and you learn what makes you feel good, or you learn what doesn't feel so good. And sometimes when we yell at people, I think the thing is that in hindsight, we say, they probably would have heard me if I didn't yell. And if someone makes you feel bad, it doesn't necessarily make you feel better to make them feel bad too.
No, it doesn't.
Sophia, you have such a pure insight to Liam's experience with the language and where you come from. And what you have been doing is you've been actually being Liam's voice while he finds his own. And you've been advocating for Liam, which is something that, you know, that's your dad and I's job. That's what we've been doing. But it's really, the insight is that we're all Liam's advocates, right? This is If We Knew Then. And we always ask if there's something, if I knew then, if you wanted to share anything. But I want to ask you, is there anything extra maybe that you'd like to share with parents or siblings out there that are listening?
I don't really focus on that my brother has Down syndrome all the time. It's not something that's constantly in my mind. I don't think it's hard just to have a brother with Down syndrome. I just think it's hard to have a brother at all, or even any sibling. And if ever I get caught up, or just, I don't know, I got stressed and I thought, oh, this is just because my brother has Down syndrome, I kind of stepped back and said, well, anyone with a younger sibling is going to feel like I want them to be okay. And I think it just comes with siblings naturally.
That is really such a beautiful insight. I love you so much, my child. And I think I think that's a really great thing to pull from this conversation is something that your dad and I always say, and that is, we advocate for both of our children always. And to start seeing, our children as equal and whole, regardless of how many chromosomes they have, we're still going to have those relationships, and those relationships still have to unfold, and we have to find our way through them. And it doesn't matter if there's a extra chromosome there, really. Although listening to you talk and your experience and the wisdom that you have and your depth and your empathy, I'll definitely say that there are lots of gifts that have planted themselves inside of you. I love the insights you've given us here today as far as the relationship that you have with your brother, just how normal it is. And I want to thank you for that, Sophia. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Thank you.
And maybe you'll come back around sometime.
I love you, sweetness.
Yeah, I love you so much.
I love you.
Please follow us on Twitter at If We Knew Then Pod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at If We Knew Then Pod, or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.